Organic portals, in my opinion, are actually one of the most dangerous types of non-human intelligences because of their ability to mimic and mock the divine sparks. They have an ability to mirror whatever you're projecting to them. So the intelligence working behind them that they're not consciously aware of is able to scout out your energy field. And then in this sense, they're actually extracting energy from you. And what they give in return is whatever you're putting out. What happens is when they're with you, they're able to mirror not only what you're kind of talking about, but your emotions. And that actually drains you of your energy. And in the long run, it's really going to drain you from your energy as well. Another thing to look at with organic portals would be like friends from the past or something, or friends who seem to want to suck you back into old timelines. And it's really conflicting for the divine spark because maybe they're not coming from a malicious approach, but when you can sense how you feel, like what are you feeling from that interaction, and it's not anything that's empowering you, you have to make a decision, right? Like, is it worth being in this type of interaction with this individual? So there is like a trickery going on with these organic portals, right? Because they look just like us. They seem like they're doing good. They seem friendly, but then they will suck from you. They know how to hurt you. They know how to trigger you. And as with all living beings, organic portals, they seek comfort. They seek protection, okay? Organic portals, they can feel pain versus restorative sensations. And they may also engage in practices that seem spiritual. And so the root cause for them seeking spiritual practices, it could just be to alleviate pain temporarily, like emotional pain, versus like spiritual liberation, and versus sovereignty, and versus breaking out of the reincarnation trap, something that's a lot more deeper that they might not talk about at your local yoga class, right? So there is a difference. And we can see even with superficial teachings, okay? So with the launch of the New Age, this happened in the 1970s and it became very popular in the 1990s. This really confused a lot of divine sparks, okay? Because it attracted many divine sparks who essentially wanted to just progress along their spiritual journey, but it kept them trapped in the fluff of the New Age, which is just another veil over our consciousness. And so the superficial spirituality is another layover in their maze. And many of the light workers that people end up going to for help, even if it's a divine spark, they're only seeing the light in that person that they're channeling from an external deity or egregor or source. Okay, so it's very dangerous that way. So they're not channeling gnosis. They're staying in the lower astral realms and pulling in light from external sources. It's a way to keep the divine sparks capped spiritually as well. That's all I would say about that. And so luckily, like with us here, we know we don't idolize external gurus and all of that. So it's just another approach for the demiurge army to like wheel you into another trap. Since the organic portals are attracted to divine sparks, they're very advanced in their own right because they can siphon energy and absorb energy on many levels. And one of these levels, the reason why organic portals are so dangerous is because they can be autopiloted by an interdimensional or astral entity behind the veil. So if you're starting to awaken to the reality, this is when it tries to strike back, right? So when you're starting to astral travel, when you're learning how to look through your third eye, when you're starting to engage in this stuff, I call it like an initiation process initially, where these entities will try and punk you. They will try and steal energy from you. And sometimes the way they do this will be through using an organic portal sending someone your way. An example of this is since they're able to read your energy signature, and if that person's being piloted, they get very, very tricky. So they can send someone in to basically talk to you and trigger something emotionally within you. So this happens all the time. I see this happening all the time, and it can even happen within the reality, because the reality that we're in is sentient as well. So it can happen in the reality, it can happen through these organic portals. But the thing is, you have to remain neutral. Okay. I know people who are extremely vulnerable. And so when they meet somebody and they're telling them horror stories, right? Like just negative things, they'll invite them in. Like the divine sparks, since they have empathy, they'll invite them into the reality. And all they're doing is getting their energy siphoned. So you have to be really smart. You have to understand how your intuition works, and you have to listen to how you're feeling before you can listen to how anyone else is feeling. So if someone's coming to you and all of a sudden wanting to just dump things on you, you really have to make sure where that person is coming from. If it's authentic, or if it's some interdimensional sending someone your way to siphon energy from you, and even introduce someone in your life that's toxic. The organic portal is the narcissist. It's basically a tax on your spiritual progression. That's all it is. That's all it's ever been. And it's up to you. It's up to you on how you're going to really either feed the energy or not feed it. Right. We have a quote here. If I first this quote, yeah. Quote here from Boris Morie, and he is the author you want to look into if you want to learn more about the Adamic versus pre-Adamic versus anthropod. So he says, for the moment, we will restrict ourselves to repeating that contemporary Adamic man, having lost contact with his higher centers and therefore with his real I, appears practically the same as his pre-Adamic counterpart, which is the organic portal. However, unlike the latter, he still has the higher centers, which ensures that he has the possibility of following the way of esoteric evolution. So it's basically saying that just because you're a divine spark does not mean that you're fully in your power, right? So we still have to feed our soul. We still have to progress our spiritual abilities. But we have that ability and we have that desire. Adamic man. I have this quote here from Fanush from his book, Agenda AI. Adamic man, which spawned from divine intelligence. Many Adamic beings incarnated in this realm of darkness to bring light to a false creation and to awaken the divine goddess known as Sophia, also known as Gaia, who is sleeping within a great dream. Now those divine Adamic souls are awakening, but before they can breach the walls of the simulatrix, they must defeat the challenge and obstacles that await them in Yaldabaoth's kingdom. Yep. And this is the hero's journey. This is one aspect of the hero's journey. And so the divine spark, as I said, it requires soul development. It requires energy enhancement. The divine spark, as the news said, they've been left here in the Archon's stage or the Archon's playground. And if you don't evolve spiritually, you will fall back over and over. So understand that when we talk about the reincarnation soul trap and all of this, right? It's only applicable to the divine sparks. For the organic portals and this non-human intelligence, they don't reincarnate. This is backed up by Boris Morie as well. They don't reincarnate. Just like they mass produce everything in this reality, they have like mass productions and mass waste. It's the same thing with these people. They're mass produced, and they don't send them back in. They're just discarded and they just keep mass producing. So you can see the similarities going on in the reality as well. And in this way as well, we can see that pre-Adamic, very similar to artificial intelligence. In fact, like I said, they're called organic AI, but they also exhibit calculated behavior. And that's why I really want to talk about organic portals, because they're very complex. They're very complex. They're what's inhabiting our reality the most. And so they're very calculated because they are like a hive, right? They're the hive mind, and they know how to apply universal laws in their advantage. Okay. On the back end, they're all feeding, the archons are all feeding this energy, Yaldabaoth, right? This false god energy. We're like keeping their business running, basically, when we're asleep, when we're not fully active. So that's how they keep their little hierarchy going, this pyramid scheme. And it's a synthetic hierarchy. It's not real. They're not of the divine spark. So archons love to mass produce. They prefer quantity over quality. And so they love to waste as well. And so these organic portals are just coming in and coming out. And the divine sparks are the ones who are recycled back in here to another lifetime. A little video. How often does somebody's energy inspire you to stop in your tracks and deeply acknowledge their presence? That to me is a very deep question. And I'll answer it on my end. And what I mean by this is, like, when you see someone and you could see the divine spark in their eyes, it's almost like it stops you in your tracks. It's like, wow, right? You see something divine within them. You don't just see like a blank slate or just a person, right? And so I was talking to Kanuj about this, and I remember the last time I saw a divine spark person was last year in the most random place. I was at the gym and I saw a woman come in. She was a Western woman. She walked in and I just went like, I just saw her and I saw her light. And I looked at her and I didn't want it to seem obvious, but I noticed her and I knew she was a divine spark. I talked to Kanuj about it later, and he knew exactly who I was talking about. He said, I saw her. Yeah, she was. I could see her aura. I could see her. And, you know, this is what we should be experiencing. But in a world of squids, as the news talked about in these last videos about the wizard versus muggle, the squid is actually very similar to the divine spark, who is not activated in their higher energy centers, or who have kind of fallen back into their matrix script, the squid. And so, you know, there's a lot of squids out there too. And sometimes they can fall into squiddish behaviors, and that's okay. But, you know, our reality, we should be seeing these people who light us up. Divine spark will light you up. So it makes complete sense as to why nothing is spiritual in the reality, why everything is actually never encompassing anything of divine nature. It's actually vulgar, and it's actually superficial, and it's actually ego boosting. We like it though sometimes, right? Because it kind of gives us something to have said. This whole, even scrolling, all of this stuff, right? But our society lacks soul, and it does not speak to the spirits. It makes sense as to why, right? And so as divine sparks, we have the spiritual technology, right? We have our higher energy, we have our glandular system that can turn on with some training. It's not easy, but with some training, you can turn on. And we can access higher dimensional realms, which is so worth doing. And it might not happen all the time, but I really recommend that you try accessing these higher dimensional realms as a priority, seeing how you can access these higher dimensional realms, because when you reach states beyond the matrix construct, you will be in awe. And just as when we see a divine spark, we're in awe here, or maybe you can be in awe of yourself, right? Be in awe of yourself. But when you go to these other places and you see really what's out there, maybe where a version of you is at now, it's like unlike any that you can experience here. And we want to have those experiences so we have a reference point. So we can get our heads out of this cloud, right? Out of the Maya and see what's really real. This realm, when we talk about the Archon encrypted reality, the reason it is the way it is, it's being signaled and broadcasted from Saturn's rings, okay? And so they are primarily used for two things. The holographic beings are going to populate a place that's supposed to be really crowded. This can be indoors or outdoors. They're also known as like backdrop people. They can also be used to render in an individual or individuals to occupy a space to make it feel real. Okay, so this is kind of, yeah, I'm hoping this comes across like this makes sense. It's kind of like something you have to sense. But so basically, if you've ever entered like a space that felt completely empty all of a sudden, like there's no one there, but it's a space where there's supposed to be people, and then all of a sudden it just feels like you're like on a movie set, or it feels like it's not real, like it feels unreal. Like all of a sudden, since there's not people in there, you kind of feel like this, like, is any of this real? And so I guarantee you, if you were to walk down a street that's usually crowded, but there's no people now, it would feel unreal. So one reason why there would be a reason why they would deploy a holographic being, because when you start to sense that, you're not in an actual physical real place, or that it's like a movie set, you start to become lucid. So when there's moments where you're becoming lucid within the Archon dream, they are going to send out holographic beings. And usually all of a sudden they're going to appear on your grid line. They're going to appear. So you see this image here, how there's like grid lines there. They're going to appear within close proximity to you, and they'll always be on your grid line because they're channeled in through there. Okay, they're projected there. The reality spawns in these holographic beings. It will all of a sudden turn lights on, make things seem like they're busy. And so, yeah, they're there to trick your senses into thinking that your surroundings are real, basically. And so holographic beings are all around us as well. They're not going to have as a pivotal role in your reality. They're more of the backdrop people. So you can try it out too. I mean, if you go to the store and you walk in, this is like the number one thing that will happen. If you go walk into an empty store, within 5 minutes, 3 minutes, all of a sudden there's a line behind you. There's a baby crying. There's like 3 people coming out of the bathroom. You don't know there is anyone in there. This is part of how the system works, but we don't usually notice it. But when you wake up, you're going to start noticing these trends and these algorithms and these beats that happen in the reality. So you have to be very stealth. You have to be very aware of what's happening around you. You can't just stay focused on your mind or just what's in front of you. You have to know how to calculate what's happening with you on a multidimensional level and in this holographic reality as well. So yeah, these people you won't have much interaction with. They'll probably annoy you a lot. They'll probably be in your way a lot. They'll probably bump into you a little bit. They'll probably crowd your space out of nowhere. And so the holographic beings are very prevalent in this reality. They're basically there to make the reality seem filled and crowded. And it's very similar to the online world as well, with the bots, the online bots that occupy over 50% of the traffic online, and the comments and the views. They're not real views, they're not real comments. They are bots. It was estimated that over 50% of all of the interactions online are just AI bots. So same thing in the reality, same exact thing.